This is the Memory Palace. I'm Nate DiMeo. Let's build a monument, you and I, conjured from nothing but words spoken here. And we'll pledge to hold it, at least for a time. Pretending that it's normal and fine, that there's nothing here to actually hold on to, or to touch, run a finger across, warm in the summer sun, cold as winter seems to drag on into spring. Find that there's nothing to pose in front of on a Washington field trip. First, we will need to get rid of what's already there. So let's try to tear down the Washington Monument. Try to wipe it from the landscape. Erase it from the postcards. The backdrop of photographs we've seen all our lives, maybe have taken ourselves while on vacation. Pretend that isn't a hard thing to do. And we will build this monument, using plans proposed long ago, submitted for some formal approval back when they were soliciting public input for what would become the iconic white obelisk that we are trying to forget about. Which I probably just made harder to do by mentioning it again, and I'm sorry. But anyway, I remember some story about how they were looking for ideas. I don't remember if I heard it or read it or when or where. But I don't think that should stop us from making our monument, even if I'm not sure I'm getting all the details right. I heard or I read or clicked on some link and glanced at and maybe misread that when they were looking to finally honor George Washington, I say finally because some folks had wanted to build a monument in Washington to Washington before he had died, before he had even been president. When they got really serious about it, in the 1830s, I think, and started raising money, appointing dignitaries to chair committees and sit on boards and request bequests. They asked for ideas from Americans, from the public, regular folks. And the ideas that came in were what you'd expect. Nothing too crazy. A marble man on a marble steed, a Pantheon ripoff, a tower surrounded by columns, 13 columns, one for each of the original colonies. Someone wanted to put a crypt underneath it, to house Washington's remains, assuming his family would sign off on the plan to move it from Mount Vernon and not make a stink about it. They were all very straightforward and stately and dignified in a 19th century kind of way. But there was one idea proposed and rejected, if I remember correctly. And I want to build it here with you now. If only in our heads, if only for these few minutes we have left together, and forever how long it hangs in the air, or stays with you after the story ends and you go about your day or drift off to sleep or whatever the next few hours hold in store. This was the idea, I think, maybe. The idea was that the veterans of the Revolutionary War, each of them, all of them, that were still alive in 1837, let's just say, would converge on the Capitol, would come in from the countryside, get up from their porches, put down their plowshares, and make the journey to Washington. And these men would be old, a half century later, but there would still be many thousands, hale enough to make the trip, though probably not for much longer. And each of these men, stooped and arthritic, milk-eyed and shrunken in their old uniforms, which are now stiff and faded with age, smelling of cedar and homemade moth repellents, would come to the spot at the center of the mall where the monument stands now, that white tower topped with the pyramid, that abstraction, that dignified muddle of symbolisms, a little classicism here, a little Egyptomania there, sprinkles of cringy nonsense about whiteness and purity and phallic whatnot and bigness for the sake of bigness thrown in. And all of this stuff that was somehow supposed to honor and embody a man, an impressive man, a remarkable one in so many ways, but a man all the same. And so let's see these men, veterans in their thousands, in their last years, in bodies, however altered, that had once fought under Washington's command, had marched and ate bad food and worn bad shoes and gotten eaten alive by mosquitoes and fleas and missed their beds and their spouses and their children desperately, or maybe not at all, and maybe had no idea what they were really fighting for, or knew with every fiber, knew in their souls, knew with every step, that they were making history, that they were making a new nation, that they were ready to die for it, whatever that really means. These men assembled in the Capitol in their thousands, in their last years, who had made whatever they could of their lives in that new nation, who had planted fields, had sold dry goods, loaded ships, mined coal, chiseled names into headstones, shoed horses, hung a swing from a branch of the elm in the yard for their son, for their daughters, and pushed them gently, then higher, but not at all. All of these men would come to the city named Washington, and each would scoop up a shovelful of dirt and toss it onto a pile, one by one, each after each in their thousands, until the dirt made a pile, made a mound, maybe a small hill, there in the center of the mall. And later someone would throw down some seed and the small hill would green and become part of the landscape. And that is all. A Washington monument, instead of the one we have now. See it there, between the Lincoln Memorial and the Capitol, by the new Museum of African American History. See it in 1939, filled with people, lifted up to try and see Marian Anderson sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. See them in 1963, trying to see Martin Luther King. See it draped with the AIDS quilt in 1981. See women, just last January, marching up and over it. Just a hill, made by men, to remember a man. And see it, and hold it there for a moment. The Memory Palace is produced by me, Nate DiMeo, with research assistance from Andrea Milne and engineering assistance by Alyssa Dudley. We are a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX. We get ad-serving technology from AdZerk. Our ad music, by the way, is produced especially for us here at Radiotopia by J.D. Sampson. We receive funding from the Knight Foundation and from listeners just like you. I joined the Radiotopia family about 2 years ago. And at the same time, I was joined by a good friend of mine. I feel a special kinship with this guy and with this show. My friend Rishikesh Hirway, the host of Song Exploder. And if you haven't checked out Song Exploder, I don't know what's stopping you. Each episode, Rishi takes apart and then puts back together a song. And the writer of the song, the producers of the song, walk you through the songwriting process and the production process. And it is such an artful look at art. I think you're going to love it. I mean, you know, go for the bands, like go because you're a fan of Metallica or Courtney Barnett or Carly Rae Jepsen or DJ Shadow or One Xtrix Point Never or whatever is your jam. They've likely showed up on Song Exploder. Or be like me and just listen episode after episode. And just this beautiful, impeccably produced ongoing conversation about songwriting and creativity. The show is called Song Exploder, and you can find it and all the other Radiotopia shows at radiotopia.fm. And you can find me here every couple of weeks.
Radiotopia.